Review: Reacher Season 2, Episode 5. Burials and blown-up buildings. With the first half of Season 2 behind him, Jack Reacher and the rest of the surviving special investigators are finally starting to find more answers than questions. It's a bigger season than the first, with 4 times as many locations. However, the mystery itself continues to unfold slowly. It's a deliberate choice on the part of the storytellers, because as much as Season 2 is about the murder of their former colleagues, it's also about the mystery of Reacher himself. The episode title, Burial, is a reference to the funeral for the first fallen member of the 110th Special Investigators Unit, Calvin Franz. Though it's odd his final resting place isn't in the Southside Cemetery, Allegheny Cemetery, or any of the graveyards on Cemetery Lane in his native Pittsburgh, PA. After all, his love of the Steel City was a crucial part of his character. Instead, he's put to rest in New York City, where Reacher sees his not-quite-alive detective Guy Russo talking to Fran's son and giving him a superhero figurine. This sets off alarms for the audience since 2 of the times they've seen M, the villain of the season, he's seen giving comic books to children in a very creepy way. When Reacher confronts him, however, Russo has a very convincing story. His father was also a police officer, killed by dirty cops in his unit for staying clean. This seems to reach Reacher, who almost apologizes for the hard time he's given the detective thus far. Though that's not what makes him trust the detective. When shots ring out at the funeral aimed at Fran's surviving colleagues, Russo puts himself between the gunfire and Fran's widow and son. In the previous episode, Russo gets chewed out by his lieutenant. That scene and the exchange with Reacher show he has a serious chip on his shoulder. He may not be a dirty cop, but he's not entirely clean either. When he and Reacher catch the fleeing hitman, Russo looks the other way when the pissed-off Army veteran almost chokes the would-be killer to death. When the hitman does talk, he says he was hired by a man named Swan, the missing member of the 110th. Since discovering Tony Swan worked for New Age, Reacher has been in active denial that one of his colleagues could be dirty. The flashback in Burial makes it clear why. During a sting operation where he and Reacher pose as drug dealers, Swan takes a bullet meant for his commanding officer. Reacher is not used to owing his life to someone, which makes Swan's betrayal that much more painful. However, the events of this episode make it hard to deny. Reacher and Neagley watch helplessly as the hitman goes to an abandoned building to meet Swan, that's immediately blown up in a massive explosion. Reacher is not someone used to uncertainty, but everything about this case has him unsettled. Beyond the villains gunning for them, Reacher seems to be uneasy working with his friends from the 110th. While this is the second season of the show, the book it's adapting, Lee Child's Bad Luck and Trouble, is the 11th in the Jack Reacher series. Readers were much more familiar with Jack Reacher's lone wolf ways than viewers are. This makes the moments where his friends look at his lifestyle with confusion seem a bit more jarring and judgmental. It also explains why reuniting with them has thrown Reacher off his game. There's been a 2-year time jump between Season 1 and 2. Whether he's been getting involved in other mysteries like he did in Margrave or not, Reacher isn't used to working with a team anymore. The episode opens with Reacher at O'Donnell's home. He's packing up his kids and his wife to go into hiding after Reacher threatened the mastermind of the plot, Stan Langston, at the end of A Night at the Symphony. It's yet another moment that stands in contrast to Reacher's minimalist lifestyle. Instead of what audiences might expect, Mrs. O'Donnell isn't angry or overly afraid about fleeing. Their 2 kids aren't either, running around and playing while Reacher sits by and watches. He even comments on this to O'Donnell, jokingly inquiring if she married him because she lost a bet. Reacher Season 2, Episode 5, titled Burials and Blown-Up Buildings, marks a pivotal point in the series as it continues to deliver on its promise of action, intrigue, and gritty storytelling. With this episode, Reacher continues to prove itself as a thrilling adaptation of Lee Child's iconic novels, blending intense character development with jaw-dropping set pieces that keep viewers on the edge of their seats. A plot that thickens the title of this episode, Burials and Blown-Up Buildings, encapsulates the core events and underlying themes that drive the narrative forward. The pacing of the episode is carefully constructed, weaving together multiple plot lines while maintaining tension throughout. One of the most significant aspects of the episode is the deepening of the mystery surrounding Jack Reacher, Alan Ritchson, and the criminal conspiracy he has uncovered. In this episode, Reacher is not only dealing with a dangerous group of adversaries, but he is also confronting his own past. The burials alluded to in the title serve as a metaphor for Reacher's internal struggles, as much as the literal threat of death that looms over him. As viewers, we are given glimpses into Reacher's psyche, and his cold, calculating demeanor begins to crack as he faces unresolved trauma and personal losses from his past. At the same time, the blown-up buildings signal the explosive action that the series has become known for. This episode is the ante, delivering high-stakes action sequences that are choreographed to perfection. Explosions, hand-to-hand combat, and shootouts are all on display, but the action never feels gratuitous. Each moment serves a purpose, moving the plot forward and revealing new layers of the conspiracy Reacher is trying to dismantle. Character depth and dynamics. Alan Ritchson continues to shine as the titular character, bringing a sense of gravitas and physicality to the role. His portrayal of Reacher balances the character's quiet intensity with moments of vulnerability, particularly in this episode where he confronts emotional pain that has long been buried. Reacher's stoic persona is one of his defining characteristics, but Episode 5 allows us to see more of the man behind the muscle, and Ritchson handles this development with subtlety. The supporting cast also has its moments to shine. Roscoe Conklin, Willa Fitzgerald, who plays Reacher's ally and love interest, is given more to do in this episode, proving herself as more than just a side character. Her investigative skills and determination mirror Reacher's own, and the dynamic between the two characters continues to evolve in interesting ways. Fitzgerald portrays Roscoe with a blend of toughness and emotional depth, which makes her an integral part of the story rather than a mere romantic subplot. Additionally, the villainous elements in this episode grow more menacing. The shadowy figures that have been manipulating events behind the scenes are slowly revealed, and the threat they pose to Reacher and his allies becomes more tangible. The introduction of new antagonists adds to the tension, and their motivations remain shrouded in mystery, keeping viewers guessing. Thematic exploration. One of the most intriguing aspects of this episode is how it explores themes of justice, revenge, and morality. Reacher operates outside the law, but he adheres to his own strict moral code. This episode forces him to confront the consequences of his actions, both past and present. As the body count rises, Reacher is forced to question whether his quest for justice is worth the collateral damage. This moral ambiguity adds depth to the character and raises the stakes of the story. Burials and blown-up buildings also delves into the concept of corruption and how it permeates every level of society. From the small-town police force to powerful corporate entities, no one is safe from scrutiny. The episode paints a bleak picture of a world where power is often abused and justice is elusive. Reacher's role as an outsider trying to dismantle this corrupt system is a central theme that resonates throughout the series. Visuals and direction. Visually, this episode is one of the most striking of the season so far. The cinematography captures both the brutal action scenes and the quieter, more introspective moments with equal finesse. The scenes of destruction, particularly the titular blown-up buildings, are handled with a sense of realism that heightens the tension. The practical effects and stunt